So, after that insightful panel that just concluded, we will now deep dive into how philanthropy can support waste management and entrepreneurship in a fireside chat with representatives from H&M Foundation as well as the GSW Foundation. Today's fireside chat will be moderated by Social Alpha CEO, Mr. Manoj Kumar, who of course needs no introduction. I would now like to welcome Mr. Manoj Kumar onto the stage.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today, and it's really a privilege for me to moderate this fireside chat, which was actually planned to be done by Prashant Prakash, who is the founding partner of Excel and also chair of Karnataka Startup Vision Group for the Karnataka government. He was supposed to be here, but then he's not feeling well, so I am basically filling in. So I will not be as effective as it was originally designed to be, but I will try my best to moderate this chat. But thank you so much for joining us today. I'll start with the common question for both of you, right? See, traditionally, philanthropy, foundations, social responsibility around the world has been focused on a traditional grant-making approach towards philanthropy and impact. And that has worked for several years, and I think that will continue to happen. Right? The entire civil society, non-profit, organizations are completely dependent upon that philanthropy. But what really has happened over the last few years that organizations like yours have started recognizing the power of innovation and entrepreneurship and the role entrepreneurs can play in the development sector, right? Historically, entrepreneurs played roles only in areas where market opportunities exist. But there are entrepreneurs who are trying to create new markets and addressing market failure, like the 5 entrepreneurs we have. And this is an area where historically philanthropy has not been very active. But both your organizations under your leadership have actually recognized that as an emerging area. And I just wanted to understand from you, Maria, and then from you, Ashwini, how you look at it as the role of entrepreneurs and innovators in development sector and creating impact.
Yeah, I think that for us it's a very natural, it's in our core because we are, as a foundation, sprung from an entrepreneurial heritage, having been founded by the owner family of the company H&M Group. So we work to support actors, innovators, entrepreneurs that can create inclusive societies and push the fashion industry towards becoming planet positive. And I think entrepreneurs are really key actors because they challenge status quo and can help disrupt the current systems. And it's also, I think, about that mindset of an entrepreneur is always trying to solve a lived problem, right? And they do this with passion, and this is really what I think the world needs. So we really see there's a need to support that movement.
Thank you. And Ashwini.
Thanks, Mari. I think you covered about 2 points. So some answers have already been given to your questions. I think, like you very rightly said, market failures need to be addressed. Grants have typically addressed market failures. So grants should not be for looking at opportunities which can be turned around into a sustainable business opportunity, because when you are offering solutions, then the sustenance of those solutions is much more long-lived. I think that's the way I would like to put it. So you're not providing a service through a grant approach, but you're actually providing a solution. The second way, in a sense, philosophical, if you may call it, it also talks about how you provide a certain sense of dignity at the end of the receiver, because the receiver is receiving a solution and is actually paying for it. So that brings in a whole lot of dignity at the end of the receiver. So he or she, the recipient is not looking at something from the lens of, okay, here is a grant which has come to us or a service being offered to us at a free of charge thing. So there's a whole lot of dignity, which also comes in. The thing is, the magnitude of the problem is so immense that through only one set of stakeholders, you will not be able to solve the problem. I mean, the pace of change that we require to meet some of those targets that we have set for ourselves as the citizens of this earth would require a whole range of actors to be coming into the picture and bringing in all that innovation and scale that we are talking about. So which is where I think the entrepreneurs become very important, and this is where I think they need to be picking on. The second element is that typically grants have worked where we know a certain set of solutions and we try scaling it up or deploying those solutions. Here you're talking about innovation where there is a whole lens of looking at problems from a different perspective and making it more comprehensive and holistic. So a typical entrepreneur will not just do a linear fashion of taking a grant and disposing it off, but would be bringing in all kinds of ideas as to how to make it sustainable. When we were listening to these five bright minds sitting on the stage here, they were talking about, some of them were so candid about saying how they brought in resources, how they tried various ways of looking at, how they recalibrated their approach towards raw materials. So I think this whole way of solving a problem and turning it into a source of livelihood for themselves, that ensures a sustenance. So that's, I think, something very important.
No, thank you both for your insights, and I'm very hopeful that more and more foundations and corporations, as they start supporting entrepreneurs in these sectors like circular economy, waste management, climate change, healthcare, livelihoods, we will have a parallel, you know, institutional activity. So while we have civil society and NGOs and government doing their own bit, you have entrepreneurial activity adding to that, right? So this whole ecosystem then has, as you rightly said, multiple players and orchestrating, innovation through entrepreneurship while implementation through non-profits. And let me shift to a different area, right? And climate change is real, right? We are all now, like we had this big heat wave in India recently. If you look at the coastal belt, you have intensity and frequency of disasters have just increased. Rainfalls are so unpredictable. I grew up in Himalayas, and where I grew up, it used to snow every winter and it doesn't snow anymore, right? So we all are witnessing these warnings and signals that climate change is actually here, and we cannot just ignore it. And if you look at the space that we are working together, the waste management and circular economy, and if you see the landfills that we have, and these landfills, trapping heat and releasing methane and contributing to emission, eventually the circular economy and waste management is of course about waste disposal and livelihoods of waste pickers, but in the process, these entrepreneurs and innovators are also diverting a lot of waste that would have otherwise gone into landfills and contributed to climate change, right? And if we have to really protect the planet, we have to decarbonize every sector of the economy, whether it's manufacturing, industry, energy, or land use. Again, I want to ask both of you how you and your organizations are looking at decarbonization, circular economy, climate change, and how your philanthropic efforts are geared towards not just the livelihoods which you are directly creating in your respective areas, but also protecting the planet from greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, so at the H&R Foundation, we work with a couple of verticals. So inclusive societies where I'm working, and also we have the vertical called Planet Positive. And both of us are working in this space. But I would say that if I take an example from the Planet Positive team, they have a really focused approach where they are really looking for solutions to push, as I said, the textile industry towards circularity, towards reducing its environmental footprint. So they are looking for global solutions to this end. They're supporting research, and they're also basically wanting to work with all the global commons. So not just climate, but also land, water, oceans. So this is an important aspect of their work. And then of course we are always looking for synergies between these two verticals, so that we also look at how we can bring in that social perspective when we are focusing on the climate or environmental aspects. And I think what we're doing here in this program, Samika Shakti, together with Social Alpha and this Innovations Challenge, is an example of that.
You said it, that what we have seen over the last few years, ever since we started working, the biggest victims of climate change are actually the poor and marginalized. Right? It's, whether they're waste pickers or, fishing community or small and marginal farmers, they are the victims, right? And the whole debate about climate change is still about, sustainability and global warming, not about livelihoods, right? And livelihoods are actually getting impacted. And people who are getting impacted, they don't even know about global warming and greenhouse gas emission because they are so busy struggling for their daily livelihoods, right? So converging both livelihoods and global warming concerns and ensuring that climate and livelihoods are two sides of the same coin is something that is getting reflected in both the strategies of Swamiji.
So I'll just give you one example from I think the biggest contributor is steel, and I think steel is a major industry which is always kind of looked at with a question mark. So I'll try to give you very quick examples as to how the foundation and say for example just the steel business kind of works in a very integrated manner, both inside the fence as well as outside the fence, to look at issues related to water, sanitation, which of course is connected to waste, and also of course then address the larger issue of climate change. So if you look at from the raw material side, there is a whole focus from the company on digital mining, so that the mining losses themselves are reduced. When you're doing iron ore mining, the iron ore wastage itself is reduced. We have, I think, one of the biggest conveyor belts, completely covered conveyor belt, which brings in the iron ore to the steel plant, which means you are reducing all your blooms, you are reducing the wastage of the material, and there is no contamination in any sense in the neighboring communities. To support that, to buttress that, whatever is the watershed requirement, watershed development requirement in that entire region is done through foundation in a very proper data-driven approach. We've done GIS mapping using CIS, WordScan technology for all our plants across the entire country. And bit by bit, we are focusing on long-term watershed work across all these regions. Thankfully, institutions like NABARD have come forward to support us on that. So I think last 6 to 7 years, our water footprint itself, the work in our water space, has multiplied by at least 22 times. This is what I can tell you from 2017 to 2022. Then also looking at how livelihoods within the mining area, they need to be buttressed, how drinking quality water issues need to be looked at, a whole range of things around that. When you come to manufacturing of the actual process of steel production, we are a zero liquid discharge steel plant across all our locations, and we've been maintaining it for the last so many years now. There is already a process in place to ensure there is heat exchangers everywhere, and all the flue gases are recirculated for energy conservation. The targets that the company has set for itself is to make sure that the energy consumption itself gets reduced. How do we contribute as a foundation is an interesting piece, which is incidentally linked to waste management. So when I was hearing somebody talking about that we are piloting of doing co-processing of MLPs, we have already been doing it for last so many years in our cement plants. We tried this model in one of our steel plants here in Bellary. This was an innovation where the team, the environment team from steel plant and our team worked together. For us, we are the logistics suppliers to ensure that all the MLPs are collected from the entire region and they are passed on to the steel plant. In the electric arc furnace, they have innovated. It's being registered as a patent now. And this innovation is that you are going to co-process coking coal along with the waste plastic. So plastic being shredded, micronized is going to be fed. Our capacity right now is about 3 tons per day. So 3 tons of multi-layered plastic can be co-processed in a very environmental friendly manner inside the steel plant's blast furnace. So if you imagine you're talking about 3 tons of co-processing of MLPs, what magnitude of the problem is going to be solved? And which gives you a double-edged advantage, because A, you're not allowing any methane gas emissions at the land sites, plus you're also co-processing it at such a high temperature that there are NOx and SOx emissions which automatically get reduced. So this is one way how we are working together as a foundation and as the businesses. Steel itself has set up, I think India set a target for itself that COP26 for about 2.43 tons of carbon dioxide per ton of steel, if I remember the number correctly. Our standard is 1.95. We are already right now at 2.42 vis-a-vis the standard that the country has set for 2030. We are going to be 1.95 in comparison to that. Then go into the products, where I think we are working very closely, in dissemination of some of these ideas. But where the idea itself is that you create such variety of steel products that their utility, their recyclability, all adds up to a long-term decrease in the overall carbon intensity of the entire business put together. Add to it the plantations that we are talking of, the mangrove restoration work that we are doing all across, because mangroves happen to be the biggest carbon sequesters in the world. So the entire coastline, since we are also having ports and we have a lot of creeks that we are working upon. So right from Ratnagiri and all these places in Maharashtra to all the way to Odisha, this is the focus that we have. That mangroves is something that we are going to focus on as a foundation, and which is again connected to the women livelihoods, because as mangroves get deteriorated, people do have to look at livelihood opportunities. So all kinds of cage fishing, fish farming, and other kinds of livelihood activities, because the relationship between the ecosystem and the communities has to be symbiotic. If people find the value, economic and social value of the environment around them, they would be able to conserve it much better than maybe what you are doing. So that's the connect that I think we are going to work upon.
No, thank you. And see, this clearly demonstrates that how we need to look at mitigation and adaptation simultaneously, right? And then the whole global.
And I just forgot, for last 10 iterations we've been doing Earthcare Awards in collaboration with Times of India, which is basically to recognize the efforts that people are doing in the space of climate change. The 10th edition is on 3rd of June. You are most welcome to join us there in Bombay.
Thank you. No, this is really very encouraging for people like us who work in development sector to see how foundations and corporate foundations, family foundations are coming together to focus on innovation and entrepreneurship to accelerate impact and do it at a much more non-linear, disruptive way. So thank you very much. My next question, Mari, to you. You mentioned about Samhika Shakti, your amazing initiative, bringing people together in collectives, and I would like you to explain our audience, what was the idea behind setting up Samhika Shakti and how this whole experiment has been designed and implemented, and how encouraged you are with this success.
Sure. So the what we were concerned about was that we could see that we in this development sector were working very much siloed, and any social challenge is not singular, but it's actually composed of a multiple system of aspects. that are interrelated, and therefore the solutions can't be siloed. They have to be as complex as the problem itself. We have found a method called collective impact, and this is a very highly structured form of collaboration where all actors come together under a common agenda. So they are really co-creating the plan or the path or the final goals. And they all work on their respective expertise, but everything they do is mutually reinforcing. And we wanted also to see how we could focus on bringing in this social perspective in the circular economy, and work with waste pickers as the population that actually carries this system on their shoulders. And therefore Bangalore was a very obvious place actually to start working this, because here there was already a thriving scene of actors that were doing a lot, and we could also see this, well, the entrepreneurial kind of mindset that you have in the city. So that's why we ended up coming here with this first of its kind initiative actually. So it's this collective impact initiative has not really been applied anywhere else in the world.
Yes, and collaboration sounds easy and is very difficult, and getting different actors together on the same platform with a single mission is really difficult. So congratulations for thinking about it and actually driving it as the foundation. But what I'm also seeing that these entrepreneurs who are participating in this program, you have also been able to connect them with the larger H&M ecosystem with some market connect and getting these entrepreneurs some direct or indirect support from H&M. Can you talk about that?
Sure, yeah, that was actually something that really thrilled us, because obviously the waste management ecosystem is broad, very broad, but 3 of the winners, of the 5 winners, actually had innovations that were something that H&M Group, the company, could provide support and expertise and mentorship to these startups. And so we introduced them to the H&M team here in Bangalore, and they were thrilled to help and support. And those conversations also, I'm happy to say, led to more than just mentorship. It was, for example, Fool and the H&M team here in Bangalore have been really looking into how can they improve the tanning processes and create a sort of ready product, ready for the market. They've worked on this together, and as I understand it, they've come quite far in this process. I think that also helps Fool in speeding up the development process. Similarly with Zero Plast, who has a biocomposite material that the H&M team in Hong Kong were really interested in looking at. Can they use this as a replacement for plastic in the hangers that are used in H&M stores around the world? So there too, there has been quite a progress where there's now a hanger supplier that is wanting to really test this and see if they can take it to the next step. And of course, Model Art, who are working in the textile recycling value chain, super relevant for H&M. So we introduced them, and H&M actually were able to connect them to suppliers who provide textile waste to Model Art. And I think we also were actually, apart from the tectonic winners, we have also been able to create a fully fledged business, or not create, facilitate a business relationship between H&M Group and a previous Social Alpha partner, Hasrudala Innovations, which are very closely connected to Samvika Shakti as they are working with waste pickers in Bangalore. And this has led to that H&M has started buying recycled PET from Hasrudala Innovations that is then being made into poly buttons. And today H&M are producing, so basically all garments that are produced in India now contain these buttons that come directly from the waste pickers here in Bangalore. And yeah, that was a really...
Isn't it awesome?
And they've decided to scale it up to also then be, so all garments produced here in India and sold globally for not just H&M brand, but for the other brands as well. So.
That's great. Like one of the things that we have seen in social sector that, while it's one thing to provide support to innovators and entrepreneurs in terms of incubation, grant, lab access, mentoring, all that works, but really something that creates long-term strength for entrepreneurs is the market access. Creating market and getting market access probably is even more powerful than just getting money, because that is what gives them competitive advantage and early victories. So thank you so much. I actually want to thank H&M business team, people who are here on behalf of all the entrepreneurs, social health and entire ecosystem that you have supplemented and complemented H&M Foundation's work with your business association. I think that is not to be considered anything less than philanthropy, because that's a very powerful tool to take these entrepreneurs to market. So thank you so much. Ashwini, I want to come to you. You have been supporting several programs in waste management, and you mentioned about integrating again with your steel and cement plants. Is there a success story or something that you want to narrate to our audience about how this whole waste management and circularity experience in your work in JSW Foundation has been taken to market?
So I will relate it to one significant amount of research work which we supported with the IT firm in Monash University, Australia for almost like 5-6 years. This was mainly around metallurgy and those kind of things. But you'll be happy to know that out of that comes out a technology by which we are already when JSW cement is being talked of, it is the only slag-based cement in the country. So whatever comes as a slag barrier from the steel plant is pulverized to make cement out of it. So it's a classical example of circular economy.
So that actually brings me to the end of this. I think, how are we with time? Good. So one last question to both of you. And one thing that we have been hearing in all our conversation is about plastic. Everybody loves plastic and everybody hates plastic, and everybody wants to stop using plastic, but we go back to plastic again and again. Right? So I'm very happy that instead of plastic bottle, now this bottle is this is a glass bottle. And in anything we do in circular economy, plastic will come back, with some, we keep seeing innovations that replace plastic, but both of you, Maria, you and then Ashwini, do you see enough acceptance for alternative materials and alternatives? Do you think business, community, governments, everybody around the world is willing to try out, because the green premiums continue to be very high, reluctance to move to alternative is still seen as a bad economics. So what's your perspective, or what's your take? There's no right or wrong answer to that, but we need to get rid of plastic, but we don't seem to be getting there.
Actually, well, from my vantage point, where I'm, close to the industry as being connected to H&M, but still outside. But I am so thrilled to see that there seems to be so much momentum in this space, because ultimately what you need is for that change to start at the top. So there needs to be acceptance and a realization from the industry and from those that actually are using these materials to start looking for alternatives. And this is really happening. I think there's been a big shift that has started to accelerate now, and I see, for example, from H&M, the company, where they are setting really ambitious targets, and so basic KPIs where they are, setting themselves goals to, for example, completely only source sustainable materials by 2030. So that means, of course, then cutting out virgin polyester, for example, and finding other alternatives, recycled such, for example, sustainable cotton, things like that. And and also, of course, you have to look at the other aspects of the value chain. So packaging, for example, how do we get rid of the single-use plastic? And here I see as well H&M having set themselves really ambitious targets. So I think by 2025, right, to ensure that all packaging is either or I think both reusable, recyclable. I've seen that what they do within their, for example, online deliveries, that they've now introduced FSC certified paper packaging instead of the poly bags, and this is being rolled out now in all brands. So, from that vantage point, I see a lot happening, and I think before the actual targets were set, there was a lot of sort of, people wanted to see this change, but still, if you're measured on something, you're gonna have to continue working towards that. And now this measurement is in place. So I think that's a big key.
Thank you. Ashwini, your view.
Thankfully, we are a steel industry in a sense. So most sustainable material on this earth, perhaps. That's what the catch is also. If that's also the catch line for our people. I think one example which I would demonstrate, I just remember right now when she's speaking. We are also known for our steel-coated sheets, which is one of the best roofing materials to be used. And for transportation, the sheets have to be laminated with a plastic layer so that there's no abrasion and all that happening. The day we stopped using plastic bottles and plastic glasses and disposable things in our entire operations, whether in the offices or in the plants, the next decision that was made, I think, correct me Abhishek if I'm wrong, I think it was almost immediately with that they came up with some kind of a formulation. And today the steel-coated sheets are not coated with plastic. They come up with something, I don't know what formulation they do, but none of the steel-coated sheets today which are being transported are using any plastic for lamination.
With that, I want to thank both of you and your foundations for supporting these initiatives and encouraging innovators and entrepreneurs to dream, because they are working in an area where market has historically failed and support is not available. But you have created an ecosystem for these entrepreneurs to take their solutions to market. So on behalf of India's entrepreneurial ecosystem, innovators, our portfolio companies, I want to thank both of you and your foundations for